Welcome to my first 7-round mock draft of the 2019 NFL draft season. Last year I started with the Browns because they had the number 1 pick, and it seemed appropriate to continue that trend this year because the team with the number 1 pick obviously needs the most help, so let's not waste any time and start figuring out what this team needs to do moving forward. Now that doesn't mean that I'll necessarily go in order, but if enough 49ers fans ask for it, then I will move an official draft order for at least another video. In fact, if you want your team next, then shout them out in the comments, and whatever team has the most requests, I'll do them next. How about that? Let's see if we can get this Cardinals mock draft to 500 likes, and I will start working on my next 7-round mock draft of the team with the most requests. And shout out to the guys and girls at Fanspeak for providing me with their premium on-the-clock service to help me make these 7-round NFL draft videos. You don't even need the paid service to be able to use their 7-round mock draft tool, but I must warn you that it may cost you hours of your time because it can be pretty addicting to see what kind of scenarios you can cook up. The difference with the paid version is that you can do trades and there's an off-season GM tool. I usually do at least 5 of these for a team with a range of draft boards before making a video, so that I found what I think is the best possible yet realistic scenario for the team come late April. It's also really interesting to see how varied the draft boards can be. One board will have a guy in the 1st round while another board has him in the 4th or later. I think it's just cool to see how people can look at the same player and see different things. One of my favorite parts of these 7-round mock drafts is that they help me get familiar with more names at the end of the draft. I remember last year mocking Philip Lindsay to the Patriots in the 7th round of the mock draft I did for them. Thank God that didn't happen, but that was because after seeing him available in so many late scenarios, I took a closer look at him and I really liked his skill set for today's NFL. My breakdown for him, you can go back and listen, was that if he was 6 foot tall and 200 some pounds, he would have been a 2nd or 3rd round pick easily, but even I didn't see what he was capable of in his rookie season. Also, keep in mind that this is before free agency and before the compensatory picks have been handed out, so things will change in a month or so, but this is a good starting point for these, so I can kind of work out the kinks, and I want to see how long this will take so I can plan more of these 7-round mock drafts into my schedule for the next couple months. According to Spotrac, I think that's how you pronounce that, the Cardinals will have just over $40 million in cap space, so they really could address some of their top needs in free agency. They should go ahead and bring back a few of their own guys like safety Trey Boston, tight end Ricky Seals-Jones, and they've already signed a couple of ex-Falcons in edge rusher Brooks Reed and Robert Alford, but none of these guys should prevent them from seeking an upgrade at the position. Some other free agents that would help them include guys like Vikings Anthony Barr, Eagles Jordan Hicks, Denzel Perryman of the Chargers, Michael Pierce of the Ravens, Trey Flowers or Trent Brown from the Patriots, and obviously if the Texans are crazy enough to let him go, Jadeveon Clowney would be a welcomed addition to I think almost any team. The website Over the Cap projects the Cardinals to receive 3 compensatory picks, a 6th and 2 7ths for the losses of Kareem Martin, Drew Stanton, Jerron Brown, and Blaine Gabbert. And I'm pretty sure that they're already included in this mock because that's the way that Fanspeak has it set up. And as far as these 7-round mocks go, I won't do trades in these very often because they're damn near impossible to predict. But in the Cardinals situation with the number 1 overall pick and a franchise quarterback selected in the 1st round last year, it does make sense to trade down a little. When I do trade, I'll be using the same trade chart that NFL teams use as a base for determining these draft picks and their numerical value. This one is from a site called Draft Tech, but you can literally just Google NFL draft trade chart and find one for yourself, and they don't change from year to year other than the teams that hold each specific pick. So on to the Cardinals. With the 1st overall pick, they're going to have 3 options here. They can 1, stay put and take Nick Bosa, 2, trade down with a quarterback needy team that wants to secure their guy before draft day, and number 3, this was a late addition to this video because in the last 24 hours, Kyler Murray finally confirmed that he is in fact not going to play baseball and signed with the same NFL agent as Cardinals new head coach Cliff Kingsbury, but I'll get to this conspiracy theory in a minute. The reason option number 2 makes the most sense to me is because they need to make sure that they get a deal done sooner than later, because I don't think that this pick is as valuable as it has been in previous drafts that have a clear-cut top quarterback, or at least a group of quarterbacks that were arguably worthy of a top selection like this, and it would be cheaper for teams to trade into the 2nd or even the 3rd overall spot because the threat of the Cardinals, 49ers, and Jets taking a quarterback is almost non-existent, assuming new head coach Cliff Kingsbury is not actually going to take Kyler Murray number 1 overall.
Kyler is, he's a freak, man. I'd take him with the 1st pick of the draft if I could. I know he's signed up to play baseball, but he is a dominant football player, and I would take him with the 1st pick. I would take him with the 1st pick, with the 1st pick, with the 1st pick, with the 1st pick.
I think that the Cardinals are playing the game just the way that they should to make sure this number 1 pick is the place for teams that want Kyler Murray or Dwayne Haskins. I don't think that the Cardinals should shoot down the rumors about potentially trading Josh Rosen, even though initially they've said that Josh is their guy. The Patriots and Bill Belichick were reportedly interested in trading up for Josh Rosen in the draft last year if he continued to fall. So let these rumors fester and make teams come up for one of the most intriguing quarterbacks in this draft. So the Cardinals should try and lock up a trade with either the Jaguars, the Giants, or maybe a surprise team as soon as possible, even if they have to accept a slightly discounted price, because Nick Bosa is not going to make or break this team moving forward. He'd be a great consolation prize if they can't find a deal that works. So getting another high second or third, and potentially even a future first included, would be huge for them because they need to rebuild this roster with more blue chip talent. Hell, they could even trade down twice in the first round and get the offensive lineman that best fits what this offense wants to do. And that leads me to who I think the first pick for the Arizona Cardinals will be. I'm saying they trade down with the Jaguars and get a second round pick this year and the Jaguars 2020 first round pick, and with the 7th pick in this draft they select Alabama offensive lineman Jonah Williams. Now you can say what you want about Jonah Williams and his alleged short arms, but the guy is a stud and will find a home on this offensive line as a day 1 starter and should help Josh Rosen in pass protection, which was horrendous last year. If Kingsbury is going to get this offense going, he needs his quarterback to not be under constant duress, and Jonah Williams is the best offensive lineman in this draft. This is the definition of a safe pick. The Cardinals could probably get good value drafting an offensive tackle with the first pick in the second round, but the offensive line is just that much of a mess, and grabbing those technically sound offensive linemen in the draft allows them to put a confident check in that box to move on to address other needs for the rest of the draft. He could play left guard or right tackle for the Cardinals until he's shown that he'd be a better option than DJ Humphries at left tackle, which could be sooner than later. I feel like I should share my opinion on the Cardinals Cliff Kingsbury hire before moving forward and talking about some of the offensive pieces that they draft. I was thinking about doing a video where I rank the new coaching hires around the NFL, but I'll probably save that for after the NFL draft when there's a lack of NFL things to really talk about. But a real quick rundown, I'm actually really optimistic about Cliff Kingsbury being able to install his offense in the NFL. I'm not concerned with him failing, quote unquote, at Texas Tech because recruiting in that state has got to be a challenge. I know that he should have had more success with Patrick Mahomes, but that's kind of what happens when the quarterback isn't surrounded by a strong supporting cast compared to the competition. Either way, that's a conversation for another video. The Cardinals have got our attention right now with this Cliff Kingsbury, Kyler Murray thing, and I say they milk it until it pays off. If Cliff Kingsbury went up to Cardinals GM Steve Keim and pounded on the table for the team to consider it, it would be quite the story, and Kyler Murray would be the main attraction the Cardinals need and have needed for a long time. I mean, when's the last time this team was actually relevant? Even with Carson Palmer, this team had one of the best teams in the league, and they were never really taken that seriously. But this team has historically been a conservative franchise, and hiring Cliff Kingsbury was probably as splash move as you're going to get from them in one offseason. And he was brought in for his offensive acumen and to work with Josh Rosen, who they spent the 10th overall pick on last year and traded up to get. So I find it highly unlikely that they move Rosen to take Kyler Murray, but as long as the rest of the league thinks it's a possibility, the value for that number 1 overall pick stays high. Alright, let's move on to the second round with the first overall pick in the second. And if I'm being honest here, I'm drafting back-to-back offensive line with these top 2 picks. This offensive line didn't give Rosen a chance last year, and you've got to give him the best chance possible moving into his second year, because now moving forward in his career, he's always going to be compared side by side to Kyler Murray and what could have been for the Cardinals had they traded Rosen and kept Kyler Murray. But the play of the defense probably dropped off even more than the offense in 2018, so the Cardinals have to make sure they land one of these top defensive studs early on. They also benefit from the time off in between the first and second rounds and could auction off this pick for another haul of picks. But for the sake of this mock, I'm going to stay here and I'm going to select Boston College defensive lineman Zach Allen. Zach Allen is one of those guys I have on the fringe of the first round right now. I seem to like him a lot more than others, so that could be my East Coast bias, but I see him as a cornerstone for defense. Not only as a player, but a leader. And it doesn't matter what scheme the Cardinals end up running, he can play along the trenches for them in either a 4-3 or a 3-4. He can provide a little bit of edge rush in a base defense, but then kick inside and provide that inside push in your nickel and dime packages. The other option that I considered here was Devin Bush or another one of the top inside linebackers. But ultimately for me, I'm a trenches guy, and I think that you need to build from the inside out. And with the extra pick acquired from the trade down, the Cardinals are in position to make somewhat of a luxury pick and select one of my favorite wide receivers in this draft, Kelvin Harmon of NC State. Christian Kirk is going to be that gadget guy that Kingsbury moves around and creates mismatches with and comes from the slot and returns kicks. The Cardinals are going to need a big-bodied possession guy to take over for Larry Legend one day. If the Cardinals pass on a wide receiver here or don't trade down and pick up another pick, look for 6'5" Texas Tech wide receiver Antoine Wesley to be the first pick in the 3rd round. He was the Red Raiders' #1 wide receiver at Texas Tech last year, finishing with over 1,400 yards, and would fill a similar role to Harmon as the big guy to take over for Larry one day. With the first pick in the 3rd round, I have the Cardinals selecting DeAndre Walker, the edge rusher from Georgia. Zach Allen isn't going to be a high sack guy in their 3-4, so the Cardinals still need to address that edge rush position, and DeAndre Walker, I think he translates well enough. He gives them a young edge rusher to develop across from Chandler Jones. He's not a pure pass rusher, so he needs to grow in that area, but he offers immediate help as a 1st and 2nd down player. This is probably the pick in this draft I'm the least excited about, honestly. I didn't want to reach on Jalen Jelks because he's also not a pass rush specialist, despite having the frame and build of somebody who typically would look like one, but he might have a higher ceiling to develop as a 3-down edge rusher. With the first pick in the 4th round, I have the Cardinals selecting Dakota Allen, linebacker from Texas Tech. This pick just makes too much sense here to me. The Cardinals tried Dayon Buchanan and Hassan Reddick in the middle, but they haven't really panned out thus far, and I wouldn't be surprised to see one of them traded this offseason, and then inside linebacker becomes a huge need. Dakota Allen was a locker room leader at Texas Tech for Cliff Kingsbury and would be a perfect addition to this locker room. He's not going to be someone that should be counted on to start from day one, but he'd give them a solid special teamer and backup to develop. But don't get it twisted, this pick isn't just about the familiarity. Dakota Allen may seem familiar to you because he was on Last Chance U and he's got a checkered background, but I think overall he comes across as a really good dude. He got his second chance, he thrived in it, and I don't know, he just seems like he'd be the perfect little Sunday morning countdown story for all those pregame shows to run every week. So now we've got the first pick in the 5th round, and I wanted to see what kind of tight end Cliff Kingsbury liked in his offense. So I went to the official Texas Tech website to see their roster, sorted by position, and there was not a single player listed under tight end. There was one guy, and he was duly listed as a wide receiver tight end combo, and he was 6'5", 225, but that's not a real NFL tight end. So I'm guessing that the tight end is basically non-existent in this offense, but in the NFL, you're going to need to use a tight end at least once in a while. I actually think that Ricky Seals-Jones is a perfect guy for this role, and assuming that they re-sign him, I'm calling it now. He is going to have a breakout season in this offense and should be one of those last round picks in your fantasy drafts. I always liked him at Texas A&M, and I think that the wide receiver to tight end conversion in the NFL should happen more often these days. I looked at the wide receivers that were left on the board, and I didn't know enough about them, honestly, to draft them as a wide receiver to tight end project, but Alize Mack has the receiving skills that you look for in a pass catching tight end while giving you at least something to build on in the running game as far as a blocker goes. There's just too much tight end talent in this draft for the Cardinals to not come away with one guy when they've only got one on their current roster. With the first pick in the 6th round, I have the Cardinals selecting Florida State defensive lineman DeMarcus Christmas. Cardinals defense still needs able bodies in the trenches. Zach Allen would be the versatile guy that can play inside and outside equally well. DeAndre Walker would be exclusively an edge guy that can rush the passer. Now you can get one of the guys that gets none of the credit or the glory, the run stopper. Corey Peters is 30 and not really a game changer. And Robert Condici has not been the same since he jumped out of that 4th-story window in Atlanta after smoking weed with Laramie Tunsil. Man, that story still makes me laugh 4 years later. DeMarcus Christmas is really a necessity at this point for this team, or at least a guy like him at this range. He had a down year in 2018, but really, who didn't on that FSU team? They sucked this year. He's probably wishing that he came out early for the 2018 draft rather than be in this loaded defensive line class, but somebody's going to get a solid player later in the draft because of it. The Cardinals have 2 more picks in the 6th round, and with the next one, I have them taking USC right tackle or offensive tackle, and I'm probably going to butcher this, Chuma Edoga. The Cardinals' offensive line is so bad that I'd actually be surprised if they waited until the 6th round to take multiple offensive linemen in the 2019 NFL Draft. Once again, I took a peek at the size of the offensive line on Texas Tech's 2018 roster and found exactly what I expected. Nobody weighed more than 320 pounds, and I know that college offensive linemen don't weigh as much as the offensive linemen in the NFL, but to only have a couple of guys that big means that you've got a type, and it's not big. This is going to be a pass-heavy offense, and the big guys are usually better road graders than they are pass blockers, and he obviously doesn't even value a tight end in the offense, so he's going to want athletic, pass-blocking offensive linemen, and Chuma Edoga is ultimately a perfect mold for what they're looking for. He reportedly had a great week at the Senior Bowl where he showed some left tackle abilities after being primarily a right tackle at USC, so he actually could end up being drafted a little bit higher than this, but this is exactly what the Cardinals are going to be looking for. With the first of their compensatory compensatory picks, I have the Cardinals selecting JMU cornerback Jimmy Moreland. If you feel like I neglected the cornerback position for too long, well, I probably did. The signing of Robert Alford shouldn't drop cornerback this far down the list of needs for them, but I just think it's a position that can wait as long as they have Patrick Peterson on the roster. Now, if Pat Pete gets dealt before the draft, cornerback is getting addressed in the second round at the latest. But as of now, I think that they can address the rest of the team, maybe sign a few more able bodies in free agency. They've got some journeymen on their roster already, and I just think that cornerbacks are not as important as people think when the front seven isn't broken. But it's a whole nother story when these guys are getting hung out to dry. That's when it's time for the Patrick Petersons of the world to get their time to shine. Jimmy Moreland is the first guy you've never heard of in one of my mocks. JMU football is kind of a big deal around where I live, and they had a really good team this year. Every once in a while they get an NFL player on their team, and I think Jimmy Moreland is going to get drafted this year and actually stick on an NFL roster. He was the first JMU player to be selected to the Senior Bowl, where he had some pretty good reps. He's definitely a small guy at 175, but some team is going to get a steal with this scrappy nickel corner. And then with the first of their two 7th round compensatory picks, I have them selecting Penn State quarterback Trace McSorley. I can already hear the McSorley fans in the comments complaining that this is way too low for him, but guys, it's not. He probably won't even get drafted if you want the cold honest truth. He had 2 productive seasons, sure, but Saquon Barkley was his running back, and the year he was finally asked to carry the offense, he came crashing down to earth. Listen, I'm all for the evolution of the quarterback prospect. I'm here for the Lamar Jacksons, the Russell Wilsons, the Baker Mayfields, the Dak Prescotts, even the Tim Tebows of the world. I was totally on board with Tim Tebow, but if you were to rank those quarterbacks in order from best to worst, the guys at the lower end of the scale all have similar warts. Accuracy. You can run around as much as you want as a quarterback, but being accurate with the football is a requirement as an NFL quarterback because the windows are tight, and it's not really something you can improve on. It's mostly a natural anticipation and delivery that at this point you've either got it or you don't. And I hate to break it to you guys, but Trace McSorley just doesn't for me. From what I've heard and seen from the sidelines, he's a great leader and teammate, and I'm under the belief that you can't have too many positive leaders on your roster, even as a developmental quarterback. Now, back to his fit with the Cardinals. If McSorley is going to find a home in the NFL, it's going to be with a team like the Cardinals that would be running more of a college style offense in the NFL. One where the quarterback won't be asked to be super accurate because the passing game will focus on short, quick passes with a single read. And after seeing what Sean Payton did with Taysom Hill, I would love to see Cliff Kingsbury get his hands on Trace McSorley and inject him into the offense in certain situations. McSorley would also be an awesome quarterback for any team to have to run practice squad reps, especially for the Cardinals leading up to their games against the Seahawks, so that he could imitate Russell Wilson for the first team defense or any other mobile quarterbacks they run into over the course of a season. And with the final pick for the Arizona Cardinals, I have them taking UVA wide receiver Olamide Zaccheaus. Here's another one from my neck of the woods. I go to a lot of UVA games, and this guy was the offense. UVA did get a quarterback named Bryce Perkins from Arizona, and he's probably never going to be an NFL quarterback either, but the two of them are the main reasons that UVA really won a single game this year. Zaccheaus is a severely undersized wide receiver, but damn, this boy can ball. I don't care what people say about the size requirements in the NFL, honestly. I saw it in person with my own eyes on more than a few occasions. Almost every week, this dude was one of the best 5 players maybe, and that's being generous. One of the best 5 players on the field for either team at any given point. The defense that they were facing knew the ball was going to come to him on at least 2 out of every 3 downs, and they still couldn't stop him. He was a combine snub, and that's okay because he probably wouldn't blow anybody away with the results there anyways, but this guy's got football speed and can cut on a dime. His ability to make guys miss is some of the best I've ever seen, and he might not get drafted for the size concern, but I promise he's going to stick on an NFL roster when he gets a shot, and I'd love to see him get a chance with Josh Rosen and in this offense as a slot wide receiver where they're just going to be throwing him screens and slants just to get the ball in his hands. I hope I was able to give you guys a couple of players that I like to be able to look into when you're bored. I personally love looking at the guys that are projected to go late and kind of hitching my wagon to a few that I think will pan out. I'm really excited about the potential of this Cardinals offense in 2019. I want to see what Cliff Kingsbury brings to the table. And I think with some offensive line upgrades, this could be an interesting season for Josh Rosen and company. David Johnson should have a bounce back year with better play calling, and the defense, it really shouldn't be any worse. It was the strong point of this team, so hopefully these guys only have to spend another season or so in the basement of the NFC West before they can really turn things around. Thanks for watching, commenting, and subscribing. Please help me hit the goal of 500 likes on this video. It really helps this channel. And then I will do a 7-round mock draft of the team with the most requests in the comments. You guys are all legends for staying to the end. I appreciate you greatly, and I will see you in the next video.